Squirrels are known for their agility and speed. However, they are afraid of humans and often run away from them when they approach because they have come to see them as a threat. But in the case of this squirrel, her maternal instinct led her to approach a man, Mike, whom she begged to save her cub. What Mike did next is shocking. In the heart of Middletown, a man named Mike shared an unbreakable bond with nature. His love of the outdoors fueled his daily routine of camping and hiking, instilling in him a deep appreciation for the natural world. Growing up alongside his father, a park ranger, his fascination with animals and wildlife blossomed. Spending countless hours exploring the park and reading books about nature, Mike nurtured a dream of becoming a park ranger. He had always been an animal lover for as long as he could remember. He grew up with many pets and would play with them all day in the park, which slowly increased his connection to animals. Shortly after graduating from high school, Mike was admitted to college to study parks and recreation management. He threw himself wholeheartedly into his studies and became an inspiration to his peers, and it was no surprise to them when Mike eventually graduated as valedictorian of his department. A few weeks after graduating, Mike landed his dream job as a park ranger and couldn't have been happier. He loved everything about his job: the fresh air, the beautiful scenery, and the opportunity to work with animals. His position allowed him to protect and preserve the beautiful park that had captured his heart since he was a young boy. He spent most of his free time walking through the park, connecting with nature and constantly making sure the animals were safe. He was always on the lookout for wildlife to observe and study. At the park, every day was a new adventure, as there was always something new to learn. But one particular sunny Friday afternoon turned out to be unlike any other day, and it changed everything Mike thought he knew about squirrels. That Friday, Mike was on his daily chores walking through the park to inspect the animals. He had been walking for about 30 minutes when he suddenly heard a strange sound. At first, he wasn't bothered because there were so many animals in the park and they were making different kinds of sounds. But then, as he continued with his duty, the sound came again. This time, it was a frantic, high-pitched scream. Curious, Mike began to follow the sound through the park to find out what was going on. As he made his way through the park, he stopped hearing the sound again. He then decided to abandon his search and turn back to check on the other animals. But just as he turned around, his eyes caught a glimpse of a squirrel standing right next to a star magnolia tree. Mike had seen many squirrels before, but there was something different about this one. Usually, squirrels flee when they see a human, but this particular one didn't move an inch. Also, this squirrel's eyes looked very sad and teary. Just when Mike thought he had seen it all, the squirrel did something even more shocking. It suddenly stretched its front paw toward him as if it was trying to tell him something. Concerned, Mike instinctively reached into his pocket for a handful of nuts. He offered it to the squirrel in hopes of providing comfort and nourishment. But to his surprise, the mother squirrel refused her food as if to say that this was not what she needed. Confused, Mike sat on the ground staring at the squirrel, who began to make strange gestures toward him. At first, he didn't understand what was wrong. Then she began to nod in a certain direction as if she wanted him to know that there was something in that particular spot that needed his attention. Puzzled, Mike watched as the squirrel scurried away. Determined to find out what the problem was, he got up and began to follow the impatient squirrel, who led him through a maze of trees and murmuring streams, leading him into the heart of the park. The squirrel darted through the underbrush and jumped from tree to tree, traversing the park with ease. But since Mike was trailing behind, he couldn't keep up with its nimble movements. The man felt a little disappointed, thinking he had lost the squirrel and the opportunity to help it with whatever it was that needed help. But just as he was beginning to consider turning back, a rustling in the bushes caught his attention. The squirrel, perhaps knowing it had lost Mike, turned to look for him. Then it stared at him as if urging him to continue following it. Finally, they came to a grove of trees deep in the park, and just a few feet from a tree, Mike was greeted with the most heartbreaking sight ever seen. There was a narrow hole nearby, and when he looked inside, he saw an exhausted baby squirrel caught in a trap as it struggled to climb out of the debris-filled hole. Without hesitation, Mike quickly scooped up the baby squirrel and opened the trap, setting the baby free. The baby squirrel was in a lot of pain and bleeding slightly. The mother squirrel squeaked anxiously, not taking her eyes off her baby. Mike felt compassion for the animal and vowed to do everything in his power to save her baby, so he sprang into action and raced back to the park office with the mother squirrel and the baby. As soon as she arrived, she called animal control and explained the situation. They assured her that they would send a team to handle the situation quickly. 15 minutes later, a team from animal control arrived at the park. They carefully examined the squirrels and told Mike that the baby needed special care and attention to fully recover. The animal control staff assured Mike that they would do everything they could to nurse the baby squirrel back to health, so they took the animal with them. Days turned into weeks, and Mike's heart was still heavy with worry. Every day he visited the animal control center, anxious for news on the baby squirrel's progress. The team worked tirelessly to nurture and care for the baby squirrel, providing care and attention. Finally, the day came when Mike received the news he had been eagerly awaiting. The team informed him of the remarkable change in the baby squirrel and how it had regained its strength and vitality. News of Mike's heroic efforts spread throughout the park, and people marveled at the ranger's deep compassion and dedications to saving the little animal. What everyone didn't know was that Mike was about to do something even more shocking. As the animal control team prepared to return the baby squirrel and its mother to the park, Mike felt dejected. He had grown attached to the squirrels during his ordeal, and the thought of them being separated from him tore at his heart. In a bold move, he approached animal control officers and park management and made an unexpected request. Full of earnestness, Mike asked them if they could release the mother squirrel and her calf into the tree in his backyard instead of taking them back into the woods. Mike was afraid that something would happen to the squirrel and her baby if they returned to their home in the park. The animal control officer and zoo management were surprised by Mike's unusual request. It was not common for a park ranger to request custody of wildlife. However, after witnessing Mike's unwavering commitment and genuine concern, they agreed to consider his proposal. After discussions with his superiors, the animal control team returned to the park with a surprising response. Recognizing Mike's dedication to the squirrel's welfare, they allowed him to take the animals home for about 4 weeks, and, if he did a good job, he could keep them as long as he wanted. Overjoyed by the outcome, Mike expressed his deep gratitude to the animal control team and quickly embarked on creating a safe and comfortable habitat for the mother squirrel and her baby. With meticulous care, he designed a cozy nest inside a towering tree, lining it with soft materials and surrounding it with abundant food sources. The animal control team visited Mike regularly to check on the squirrel's welfare, and were more than happy to see that Mike was doing a good job. 4 weeks later, Mike was allowed to care for the squirrels for as long as he wanted. Over time, Mike and his animal friends formed an incredible bond. The animals brought a lot of joy into his life. Mike was also proud of the baby squirrel that survived despite the hardships. This taught him that he too can accomplish anything he sets his mind to. What do you think of this amazing story? What would you have done if you were in Mike's shoes? As always, we love to hear from you, so be sure to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. See you next time.